Hi, Joe Cerrone. Welcome to CAD 107, Introduction to 3D Printing, in our weekly Zoom classroom meeting. Alrighty, so this is our third class, and we continue to use the same Zoom link every week, and we'll be running the Zoom sessions from 9 o'clock until 10:30. Students aren't required to attend, but will record, and it's a good way to stay on top of the course and ask questions about the modules in the labs. Our agenda for today is right here. If you click on that and open it, I realize the pictures are kind of small in the main splash page. It's just a visual representation of what we're doing. So I like to use a lot of pictures. So we're going to review the modules. We'll look at the PowerPoint from the textbook on 3D printing, and then we'll look at our lab activities. Our lab activities are to create the Do Not Disturb sign. That is lab 1. Lab 2 is this coaster design where we just get into some fundamental solid modeling with AutoCAD. And then lab 3 has been released, which is modeling this coaster design in the coaster holder using CAD. Email if you have any questions or you need assistance. And then we've also assigned the review questions from the end of chapter 1. And those are in the quizzes and exams in D2L. Back to the course shell. Alrighty, so under content and under lab number 1, lab 1 is the Do Not Disturb sign. And so the Do Not Disturb sign is a CAD file that you download and you modify to look like this. And then we'll export that and include the STL file for 3D printing. And so the idea is that we are able to download the CAD file. Here's the student drawing. We download that file, open it, and then we follow the directions in the video tutorial. And so the video tutorial will walk you through how to create the sign. And so here's the video tutorial. We're using the project's textbook for the lab assignments. And so the 3D printing and prototyping goes through the theory of 3D printing. And then the lab manual has the labs, which are hands-on activities. And so it's more meaningful to learn about 3D printing by using the actual process. And the process is to be able to model in CAD a solid model and then export it as a standard triangle language file, an STL file. And so we walk you through how to do that. Creating the model. If you're better with SolidWorks or Fusion, you can use that, but the course is set up in AutoCAD. And so here's the modeling of the text. You can change the text as long as it's appropriate, have your initials on it. And then once that part is modeled, it will be turned in and graded in D2L with a rubric and feedback. We will print your file on the 3D printers and leave your part in P130 in a blue bin with your student ID number and initials on it. So students can pick those up. You can see the D2L for feedback and evaluation. All righty, back to the D2L. So the first project is to create this sign, and then we bring things into the slicing software. And so as we work with the slicing software, we're working with this Dremel 3D 45 type printers, and the school is equipped with it, with these 3D 45 printers. And so as we work with them, the instructions for how to use a 3D printer are given here. And it's just general information at this point. Here's what our printer looks like from a virtual standpoint. And we're able to run these courses virtually as well as the 3D printers. The Dremel printers are set to use cloud printing technology. All right, so that's the information from a nuts and bolts standpoint, how to be able to scale, model, merge groups. It's information that we're not testing on. It's right now, it's just information on how the slicer works. Back to the project one. And so for project one, model the part, save it as an STL, and turn that in. And then most of the students have that already set. That is due, if we look at the outline of time, if we look at the calendar, it is due on Sunday, it's due on Sunday, October 8th, and I'm updating this as we continue to work on this. All right, content, lab 2. In lab 2, we are to download the student file and then to model the part for the coaster using CAD. And so this exercise, we will model these 4 designs, and then lab 3, we will make our own coaster design. Students are to download the student file, open it, and then the instructions are in the video for this, but I'll do a quick demo. The geometry is already set in CAD. And so when we open the file, we'll get this title block. And you want a title block because it communicates drawing information. It gives us the size of the part. And what we do is we model that and extrude it, and then we save it with our initials. Whenever you see XX, that's your initials, and this will be lab 2A. In model space, what we do is we go and grab an isometric view, and then we use solid modeling commands like extrude or press pull. I'm going to try press pull. I'll select geometry. I'll bring that up, and I'll say 2.5 for the millimeter height of that project. If we look at the title block page, it's updated then. And so all you need to do is to extrude it and then update the title block information by double clicking on your name here. You'll save the file as your initials. Replacing the X's with your initials. And then you'll also export the STL file. And so we'll say, go to the big red A, and we'll say export, other file formats. And then you look for the lithography STL, which is standard triangle language. Save file, click on the part geometry and hit enter. That STL file will go to the same location as the drawing file. We will then go into the slicer, and you can see I have a part slicing for our project 3. I'm just going to move it off the screen here, and I'm going to open our STL file, and here it is. We'll put that on the build plate, and we'll use basic modeling commands. I'm going to, it seems mine's, there we go. Let me delete this one. It seems to be giving me an error. And then what we'll do is we set the material type. And so this will be Dremel PLA. And the textbook has the information on materials. We'll be covering that in a later chapter. Right now, we're using PLA, which is polylactic acid. And we're using the quality level for low quality, meaning it's faster. And so as we go through and work with our program, we'll be bringing it in and we'll set this up. I like to set it up with what's called build plate adhesion, because what happens is as this starts to print, it heats up and the edges can come unglued or come off the build plate. And so build plate adhesion is important to get a good part. And then what we do is we prepare it, and then we can view the layers in our slicer. So the instructions are given for where to get the slicer and how to get the Dremel Digi Slicer. If you Google Dremel Digi Slicer, you'll get a link to download the software. It's also in the announcements. And that's our part. We will run it, and then we will place the finished projects in the student bins in room P130 by the door. All righty. So that is lab 2, and there are 4 of the coasters to model. You save the drawing file as a drawing file in an STL, and then you turn them in under the assignments folder for module 1. Excuse me, that's module 2. For module 2, which is due October 11th. If you need an extension, you can always ask for an extension here in email or additional support. All right, so module 3 has been released today. And if we go to content and lab number 3 is this project with this coaster design. And essentially we're following our textbook for that information. And so we will be using from the 20 projects books, the coaster project. We will draw it and model it in AutoCAD. We will export it as an STL, and this is your own design. As we go through and make the design for this, what we want to do is to be able to model it for 3D printing, meaning all of the components are connected. We can't have like a circle out here without anything connecting, or it would be a separate component. We'll model this, put it on the title block, save the file as lab 3A, and just like in module 2, we'll turn in the drawing file and the STL file, which will be graded with a rubric. There's video instructions for how to create the file and how to make the project in the D2L. There's a quiz, there are review questions under quizzes and exams. You're to complete the chapter 1 review questions. Back to the main splash page. Alrighty, so that is our quick review of our assignments. We'll post additional videos in the modules about the labs. Remember, if you have any questions or concerns or need some assistance, you can email us using D2L. With that, I'm going to stop the recording and open things up for questions.